Hello everyone, Zellerant here, and for today's video on Chaos Zero Nightmare, as I've now reached level 31 and kind of gotten to play with the game quite a bit at this point, I thought now would be a great time to kind of talk about my combatants and kind of take a look at them and what I have found that works very synergetic. One of the big things with the team that I currently use here is it's one that I think a lot of people will have access to, especially if you rerolled, because one of the big units is one that I think was a main reroll target for a lot of people. And then the other one is a current rate up unit. And so the first one being what I think most people wanted to reroll for was Khalipe, which even though she was nerfed from everything I read from the beta, because she was broken in the fact that she gave a lot of shields and did a lot of damage, she still feels pretty strong. Very strong shields, very strong damage as well. And then you have Haru, which is the one that I got on my reroll. Very first 10 pull on the limited banner, I got a copy of her and didn't have to reroll at all because I just said, you know what, screw it, we're going to go with that. On the beginner banner, I did end up getting Veronica, and while I do really like Veronica, she works really well, she is not that synergetic with Haru from what I could tell in a lot of the content I was doing. Biggest reason being they are both very strong at single target, and a lot of the fights I've been doing that I've been struggling with were the ones that have a lot of trash mobs with alongside a boss that just wreck you. They whittle you down, even if you have good heals, which I really like Mika for that. And so the team I kind of want to showcase here, and the reason I think it'll be a good one as like a kind of a first team showcase overall that I find works very well together, is it's one I think a lot of people are going to have. If you targeted Khalipe as your main reroll target and you got a copy of her, all you have to do now is pull Haru on her limited banner and you'll get a copy of her. And she is very, very strong. Very strong single target. Really do like her. I think a lot of people will like her. She pairs well with Kipe, at least right now in the early game. And that's what we're going to take a look at. And so we go into the characters. We'll look at Haru first. In that, one of the big things is she does a lot of big, hard-hitting damage attacks, especially with this anchor shot. And this is not going to go into like evolutions and all that in the cards. This is just generic talk. That'll be more of a theory crafting once we get to the end game with teams. Because things will change over time once we get to the end game, and different synergies will be found amongst them at that point. But the big thing is she has a lot of damage with Anchor Shot, and then all of her other attacks here, but she's got a very high cost associated with her, with 2, and then sometimes 3 on the evolutions. And so she eats up that AP like crazy, and she's all single target. So like I said, those AoE fights are very hard to deal with. So if you're pairing her with Mika, which I find to be the better of the healer group, you can kind of make up for it a little bit with that +1 AP on this card, especially if you can get multiple of these cards. And then having these other ones, she's a lot cheaper to use to kind of pair well with her, but still, now you need that big AoE damage, and also you're getting whittled down even though she can heal without that AoE damage. And I think Khalipe is the best fitting that kind of fills that gap. She does the AoE damage, and then she adds shields that makes you even tankier. So she can give you the shields, so when you're getting attacked, you're taking less damage. They break through the shields first, then do a little bit of health. Mika is able to heal you, and then she can just go right back in there and then topping up your shields a little bit more. Very, very high sustain, and then you have all the AoE built into her kit. Upward Slash, a nice big one. You have Great Sword Aquilia, and you also have a Vulture Ejection here. Now, you might say, well, that one's super expensive. It's a 3 cost. With only 100 defense-based damage, and then it has an 80 shield associated with it. This is a card I never use in the sense of actually using the card and eating that cost. One of the things built into it that I didn't really realize it at first, I was like, why does this thing keep activating? It has this buff here, Celestial. When using a card with a cost of 2 or higher, this card activates. And this has Retain, so it just stays in your hand until it gets activated. And that's a big AoE that you can just go in, you can use the Anchor Shot, and then it just carries over into Vulture Ejection, doing a lot of AoE damage. Or you can pair it with like Upward Slash here, big AoE into another AoE, wipe out those trash mobs. Then you're ready to go into the next turn, maybe doing a big Anchor Shot. So she fills all the problems that you have with Haru in a lot of the content I've seen at this point. And I've not had any, like, all the auto battles, they're easily completing at this point. Anything where you have to manually do it, man, it's just so easy and smooth. Veronica I found very strong, since she was the first one I had on the beginner's banner. I didn't get Khalipe until I did all my got up to like 50 more pulls on the standard banner. And while Veronica is very, very strong, she's just also kind of just another single target damage dealer in that, and it's kind of random. She does big damage. Like, I need to find a team that she's good with, because she is very, very good and very cost efficient, because once you set her up, she just starts piling in these ballistas and then just auto shooting them at random, meaning you don't target who she attacks, but she does big damage to whoever she does attack. And it is quite strong, but unless you have like a single target boss paired with her and her, you're just going to get whittled down from lack of shields, even with a healer, from not being able to clear trash mobs that'll wreck you. So that's kind of the fall off on her. Big negative. Very cheap, cost effective, especially long term in a longer fight. Just not pairing well with her, at least at this point. We'll have to see once I get to the end game and you can start evolving the cards to maybe make them work in a way that makes them synergize. But right now, early game, which is kind of what I'm discussing here, not as good. Now, I have not been able to try out these other ones to really get a feel for a lot of the other 4 stars. And it's just because of the problem you always have in gacha games. They gave you enough resources to kind of level up your first core few that you're going to build with the replacement materials. But after you start using those, it starts getting a lot harder to level other. And it's not as efficient to level more of these other units at this point, because you're going to want to conserve and do those runs to get resources. For example, now I'm level 30, so I can push them to level 40, but I need to get the materials. So even though it might be nice to try out some of these others, which very well, a lot of them could be very good, I need to keep investing in resources in my main team that can do all the content at this point. So I will end up covering the other units at some point. I've just got to slowly get the resources. I'm at that point. If you're at level 31, you probably already know, or in the same situation I am. You're probably running low on these to recharge your energy. And I'm not using these currently. I might try using them, but if you're free to play or something, blowing through your crystals for energy recharge is definitely not worth it. Especially since there's like no PvP or anything that you need to really worry about. I might use it just so I can do it, so I can get closer to the end game quicker for content creation. But it's just that typical grind at this point. Eventually, I will try and start leveling up these other ones once I have the resources to try them out and see what works and doesn't. Because I really want to get a team for Veronica. We're going to need multiple teams anyway for multiple variations of content for the different weaknesses the enemies and bosses have. So it's not like they're not going to get used at all. I just thought I'd kind of talk about this first team first, just because I found it to be a generically good, synergetic team that seems to be able to do all this early game content with no problem that most people have access to. So that is my first team coverage there, and that'll be it for now. I'll probably try and make some introductions to some other little things here and there over the course of the next week or so on the game, and then once we get to that end game, start talking about the end game content and actually full on building your combatants with like their core builds for doing the end game content. But that's it for now, and if you like my content, if you can like, comment, and subscribe, it really helps, and thanks for watching.